Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Valentina Gabusi, and I am in charge of teacher training here at Zanichelli. And I welcome you also on behalf of Zanichelli. Tonight we'll be discussing Oracy, a very intriguing new skill, and most important, we'll be discussing how to work on Oracy during our grammar lesson. And we'll be doing that with a very important, and I'm very happy to welcome our speaker. Hello, Sarah Howell.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me here today.
So let me tell you something about our guest speaker, Sarah Howell, because she is many things, and I want to describe them all very well. So first of all, she's an adjunct professor of English at the Università Politecnica delle Marche. And then most important is she is an Oracy expert. She is a Voice 21 trained international Oracy leader. She co-founded the Oracy Italy group, and she is also the director of learning and research at Oracy Lab in Italy. She is very involved in TESOL, significantly involved, and she's also a famous ELT author with a robust publishing history in over 40 countries. In Italy, she is famous, and for Zanichelli, she is famous because she is the author of Grammar in Progress, together with Laura Bonci. And we are very happy to say that Grammar in Progress this year reached its 4th edition, and many of the examples and of the ideas we'll be seeing tonight are taken from the 4th edition of Grammar in Progress. So Sarah, it's your time. You can share the screen, and I will be silenced now.
Okay, thank you. There we go, there we are, I think. That should be all working okay. Is that okay? Valentina, everything's fine?
It's perfect, yeah.
Okay, well, hello everybody. I can't see anybody, but hello. It's very nice to be here today. So we're going to look at Oracy in action, transforming grammar lessons for engaging communication. So without further ado, our agenda today is, first of all, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what Oracy is, and then how Oracy can be used in grammar lessons, ideas and activities, and how that refers to exploratory talk and presentational talk. And then, if I'm very good with my timing, there will be enough time to answer all your questions that I'm sure you'll be dropping in the chat. I'd just like to see if I can also pop up the chat myself. Yes, I can. So possibly I'll be able to see when I ask you some questions. There are a lot of you here today, though. I'll do my best. So first of all, a question for you all. Are Oracy and speaking the same thing? 1, yes, they are. 2, no, these are different concepts. And 3, I'm really not sure. So have a go at that. Right, okay, 222, 333, 222, 333. Okay.
Yeah, you can have a look at the chat. So I will be displaying the results in a moment. You won't be able to see that in this occasion, but 2 is 2 and 3 basically.
Right, okay, thank you. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so what is Oracy? So when talking about a high quality Oracy education, it's really important that we all have a shared understanding of what the term Oracy means, or rather what we imply by the term in our own educational contexts. So to many people, Oracy simply does mean speaking, or speaking and listening. Here are 2 definitions by leading researchers on Oracy, Robin Alexander, Professor of Education at the University of Warwick, and Neil Mercer, who's the Professor of Education at the University of Cambridge, and the Director of Oracy Cambridge. Now, Alexander says that Oracy is what the school does to support the development of the students' capacity to use speech to express their thoughts and communicate with others in education and in life. And Mercer says that Oracy really represents the set of talk skills that people should develop in the same way that we would expect people to develop reading and writing skills. So it's very clear from these two definitions that oracy is something that takes place in school. So not just mere speaking and listening, but the actual teaching and the development of oral skills. So we can say that in the classroom context, oracy is both learning to and through talk. It's through talk that students have the opportunity to develop and share their understanding through interactions with both teachers and peers. However, to do this effectively, students must also be taught to talk effectively, so ensuring that they have the necessary skills and understanding to engage in talk for learning. This Venn diagram captures the interrelationship between learning to and through talk. And the best oracy teaching and learning takes place at the centre of this Venn when students have the opportunities to develop their knowledge and understanding through talk, but when they're also taught the skills to do this effectively. So why is oracy fundamental in the classroom? Well, speaking skills are crucial for effective communication, and they really must be taught at school. Oracy focuses on collaborative dialogue that fosters a deeper learning experience through shared ideas, and oracy enhances understanding and retention by actively engaging learners in the educational process. So teaching oracy prepares students for a collaborative future, equipping them with the kind of skills they need that are necessary for teamwork and for cooperation. And a shout out, Neil Mercer says, you teachers, you are the only second chance for some students to have a rich language experience. If these students are not getting it at school, they're just not getting it. So never mind the gap between those getting it and not getting it. Well, research claims this ever-pressing and urgent need for oracy education in schools across the globe, particularly in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. 92% of teachers think school closures due to COVID-19 have contributed to widening of the word gap. International evidence from Belgium, Holland, and the USA is consistent in showing overall progress gaps and attainment gaps for disadvantaged pupils. 2 years of the COVID pandemic have caused a substantial learning deficit equal to about 40% of what student learns in a school year, which appeared immediately at the beginning of the pandemic and still persists today. Half of the teachers reported a general loss of learning in the class. 1 out of 4 noticed the emergence of psychological disorders in at least one case among their students. So this is just some of the data that's appearing or has appeared over the last year and a half, 2 years, as we were coming sort of through and out of the pandemic. But one thing that emerges is that oracy is a fundamental life skill, and it's a skill for learning, and it's a skill that's currently ignored in most schools. And the other thing is that oracy instruction, having a voice, is necessary for any form of inclusivity. And leading on to that, recently at the Rethinking Education last year, Neil Mercer also emphasised how our democratic society demands specific communication, specific communication skills that are, for example, confidence, empathy, collaboration. And these are the seeds of effective civic engagement that we aim to sow through oracy education. And of course, none of these are even imaginable without a voice, not only literally a voice, but also metaphorically. So what can we do to sow these seeds in our 3-4 hours a week with our huge classes and all the problems that we have with our timetabling and with the makeup of our classrooms? Well, I'd like to share with you the Oracy Framework, which is devised by Voice 21. Voice 21 is the UK charity for oracy, and Oracy Cambridge, which is a research and study unit of the University of Cambridge run by Neil Mercer. It provides a clear, simple framework through which we can understand what constitutes good speaking and listening in different contexts. it breaks down the skills within Oracy into 4 distinct but interlinked strands. So the physical strand, making yourself heard using your voice and body as an instrument. The linguistic, which we're as language teachers very familiar with, knowing which words and phrases to use and using them. The cognitive, the deliberate application of thought to what you're saying, and the social and emotional, so engaging with people around you and really knowing that you have the right to speak. The strands are very much interlinked and there's an overlap between them. So, for example, vocabulary choice sits in the linguistic strand. However, it's only through our social and emotional understanding that we can identify the appropriate vocabulary to use in a given context. The framework can be used for creating, if you like, a shared language with our students, and as a diagnostic and planning tool, and for setting success criteria for our students for talk, and of course also for providing feedback. So in order to focus on Oracy in our lessons, we need to understand a little bit about the type of talk taking place in our classrooms, and this is based on the study of Professor Douglas Barnes. There are 4 broad categories: cumulative talk, which are conversations where participants uncritically build on each other's ideas, emphasizing agreement. We can call that adding on talk. That's just my term, but the adding on talk, and I explain it to students. Disputational talk, so competitive dialogue, marked by disagreement, where individuals prioritize their own viewpoints over collective reasoning, and that's the "well, you're stupid anyway" kind of talk. And the exploratory talk, collaborative and open-minded exchanges where participants consider various ideas and seek common understandings. And exploratory talk is a way of talking together that takes shared thinking forward. And we can call this messy talk, where things, students are like thrashing out ideas and working through their thoughts. It's not polished or refined talk. And then finally, presentational talk, the more formal communication aimed at informing or persuading an audience without immediate interaction, and we can call this polished talk. And these types of talk are based on the level and type of engagement, the purpose of interaction, and the degree of critical thinking involved. So the 2 that we really should focus on in the classroom, we can focus our energies on, are exploratory talk and presentational talk. So exploratory talk is where the students are going to be listening critically, but constructively to each other's ideas. They are exploring different possible answers, and they share ideas and information in order to solve problems and reach agreement. Whereas presentational talk, students adjust language and content to the audience's needs. The students have refined their understanding, and presentational talk comes towards the end of a sequence of learning. And sometimes when it isn't successful, it's possibly because this presentational talk has been expected too early on in this sequence of learning, that the students aren't ready for it. So now I'm going to ask you, just to make sure that you're all listening to me and with me on this, I'm going to get you to do a poll. I'd like you to decide whether you think these standard classroom activities are exploratory or presentational. So have to click on the box that you think it is. Circle.
So I'm getting the answer, Sarah. So they are following you and they are answering to the poll right now. We'll be just waiting a few more seconds because there are so many people and there are so many also things you have to discuss, whether they are presentational or exploratory. So just a couple of seconds more.
Yeah, can take the time. Time to read it as well, obviously.
And some of them are difficult to be answered.
Good.
Okay, so I think I'm closing the poll. It's just a way to interact with the audience. Are you positive about that? Do you want me to see
Yes.
the results?
I
Okay.
I think there are so many people that I'm not sure
Okay.
if they had a chance, but we can yeah.
Okay, these are the results.
Okay, so okay, so I can move it up and down, right? Okay, so we've got group work. Okay, well done. Presentation. So how does this work exactly, Valentina?
So the light blue is
reply.
exploratory and the dark blue is presentational. So you have percentage.
Oh, okay. Right, okay.
But if you want, we can skip the solution.
Yeah, let's move on to the next slide.
Okay.
I can even see it with my terrible vision. Sorry about that, just messing around with my mouse. There it is there. Okay, so we have group work exploratory. Give yourselves a pat on the back if you got those ones right. So presentation skills, presentation, okay. Oral tests, presentational skills. Pair work, exploratory, discussing, working together. Debates, because they're usually pre-prepared, so presentational work. And then school events such as open days or fairs, that would be presentational. Now, role plays, that's a difficult one. Did that stump anybody? Role plays could be either exploratory or presentational, depending on how they're set up. Whether they are open-ended role plays, then they would be exploratory, where they're just given the role of the person and they hold the discussion themselves. Or whether it's drama and it's pre-scripted, then it would be presentational. And again, when a student answers a teacher's question, that could be both, because it could be students offering, sharing partially formed answers, partially formed ideas. It could be a dialogic approach from the teacher who's actually discussing and exploring topics with the students. Or it could be presenting their understanding at the end of a unit of work, and so therefore it could be presentation as well. Hot seating, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with hot seating. I think somebody possibly wasn't quite sure what hot seating was. It's when you call a student to the front of the class and they sit on a chair in front of the whole of the class and they sit in the hot seat, and they are given perhaps the character of a book in literature that they're studying, and they have to answer the class's questions. So they have to put themselves in the in the position of the person who was in the play, let's say, and answer all the questions on the basis of what they have learned. So that's hot seating, sitting in the hot seat. Okay, and then a whole class discussion would be exploratory, where we're exploring ideas together. Okay. So group work. So group work obviously is fundamental for any kind of exploratory or discussions, let's say, in the classroom. Lots of the activities in the poll, as you see, were dependent on group work. Group work success actually hinges on careful planning and structured interaction. And criticisms of group work often stem from disorganized efforts, leading to disengagement and uneven participation. And Mercer's research counters these challenges by advocating for explicit strategies that ensure, strategies and protocols that ensure effective group work. And these strategies include sharing relevant information, engaging critically but constructively with ideas, supporting ideas with reasons, ensuring all actively participate, checking understanding through questions, building on each other's responses, and striving for agreement. By embedding these elements within clear objectives and communication protocols, group work can become the most powerful tool in the classroom, transforming its potential pitfalls into opportunities for deeper learning and for skills development. So here are some the tools or the protocols that Mercer refers to for structuring talk within group work. So starting with discussion guidelines, they are rules or principles set to ensure respectful, productive, and inclusive conversations among participants. And then we have talk tokens. They are physical, visual tokens used to manage and encourage participation in discussions, ensuring that everyone has a chance to speak and share their thoughts. So they're given out to the students. They could have 2 or 3 tokens each, and they spend their token every time they contribute to the discourse. And by the end of the conversation, they all have to have spent their tokens. So even the most reluctant speakers are encouraged to speak, and the more dominant ones are encouraged to share the stage with the others. And then we have talk tactics. These are strategies for better communication during discussions. They help participants understand each other, share ideas effectively, and work together smoothly. And there are different stems on each of these tactics, and we'll see them in a bit more detail later on. And I should say that the discussion guidelines and the tactics will be on the Zanikeli website, so you'll be able to read them con calma, as they say, afterwards. So group discussions can be effectively managed through strategic groupings. So this is just an example of one, like trios, for example, where you have the pair and you have a third student who can assume a role such as a summarizer or a silent summarizer who listens in and then reports back on the conversation, or a questioner, somebody who jumps in with questions during the conversation, a fact checker who maybe has been given the information or has some facts on pieces of paper that the teacher has prepared and can feed in these facts at certain points of the conversation, or even an expert, somebody who knows about the subject and is willing to listen and join in. So this kind of structure encourages diverse participation, and it really ensures that discussions remain focused and productive. So not just the pair that often fails. This helps them keep on track and be more productive. So Oracy in grammar lessons. Integrating Oracy into grammar lessons really transforms them from being mere exercises into dynamic, interactive learning experiences, whether through exploratory talk, where students brainstorm and discuss ideas, or presentational talk, where they refine and present those ideas. The aim is to make grammar instruction more engaging and thus more effective. So here is an activity from Grammar in Progress on creative thinking. And creative thinking is a key aspect of exploratory talk. So in this exercise, it's in the first exercise, the students first engage in structured practice. So either individually and check their answers with peers, or as a whole of class. They have the page opposite with a chart showing the various verb forms and different options to use when reporting speech. The activity is on reported speech. So they have this little speech by Bill Gates, which they have to transform into indirect speech. Then they move on to the mediation activity, where in pairs or at home before the lesson, they can translate the text into Italian. In class, they compare and they check and they adjust. And this can be done again in the trios with a summarizer who's listening in and ready to report back to the whole class the final version that they come up with. And then the next phase would be a group discussion, where they discuss the impact of technology on inequalities, which is mentioned in the text, where students share their ideas and they try to reach a consensus. The discussion is guided by the question in the rubric, and the students use talk tokens to express their views and join in the conversation, and tactics to facilitate dialogue, where they have stems. So they only have to concentrate on the content of what they want to say because they have the stem as a way into the conversation. And then a designated tracker, which we'll look at in a moment, to report the group's conclusions. And then post-discussion, the trackers share their outcomes using reported speech with the option to use sentence stems that we can supply if they need support for that. And the activity can conclude with a reflection on their learning process, and specifically on the application here of reported speech, looking back at their conversations, thinking about how they were able to express their ideas using reported speech and its importance for effective communication. So here's an example of the stems. So in facilitating this kind of exploratory talk, we can use specific tactics, and we can create the stems, obviously, according to the level and the target in the unit. Starting with an opening statement and probing for further explanation, and then building upon each other's ideas, and then summarizing the conversation are all crucial strategies that really take place in any good conversation. And here we're really training our students how to have good quality conversations. They help structure dialogue, ensuring it's really productive and insightful. And here's the example of the tracker that I spoke about earlier on. The idea of the tracker comes from the Harkness method from the Philip Exeter Academy in the United States. This is just an example of, we draw a circle or a square or an oval of the table. And the student who's tracking takes the responsibility of monitoring the conversation. So they write the initials of the students around the table where they are sitting. And as the students make their exchanges, they draw one line from each student to the other. So we can actually track their course. When they have a lot of experience doing this, we can then add in icons for the different tactics that have been used. So for example, we want a probing question, we can put in a little question mark, or if it's a challenge, we could put in an X, or if it's an adding on question, we can put in a plus. We can decide what the symbols are, and they can gradually track the quality of the conversation as well. And tracking can really motivate students into taking part. And you can see this messy tracking on the right-hand side of a conversation, where some people possibly have been dominating the conversation and some people haven't taken part. And this really encourages the reluctant speakers to have more of an active role. And it really is a shout out also to the dominant ones, who actually have to realize that it might be, according to your discussion guidelines, it might be opportune to invite people more into the conversation. Okay, so mediation. So mediation through exploratory talk involves students coming together to bridge differences and find common ground. This exercise teaches them to listen actively, articulate their positions clearly, and really negotiate meaningfully skills that are invaluable both inside and outside the classroom. So first, we'll get them to do the activity in trios and pull out the persuasive elements in the text, and then get them to make a list of reasons why they might want to take part in this activity. It's about a marathon, taking part in a marathon for charity. So then we can form mixed groups and include both supporters, the idea of taking part in a marathon, and skeptics. So we could either get them to put their hands up and see which one they prefer, or we can assign roles if they're all for taking part or all against. And then we can hold our discussion, and the skeptics express their concerns and the supporters try to convince them to take part by sharing and using points from the text to address the skeptics' doubts. Then the groups report back and say whether they were persuaded or not and why, again, using elements from the text, and we explore their views, and then a reflection stage on how they felt during the activity and whether they felt their views were respected and they had a voice in the activity. And then listening is a critical component of exploratory talk, and indeed in Oracy in general. First, for our exploratory talk, we're going to get the students to try and work out together what they think should go in the gaps. So not just the listen and check, which is the fast activity when we haven't got very much time, but in this case, we turn it around. So we get them to try and think about what would go in the gaps, because the listening activities and grammar in progress are never really just jot down a word. They always have to listen for something more than that. It has to be part that actually completes a sentence. So in this case, they're really going to be thinking about the structures they need to go in this space. And I also give them obviously the clue of, you're probably looking for something that's on the facing page, on the explanations that are facing this activity. Then they listen and discover whether their hypotheses were right or not. So first of all, they read the dialogue for gist. Then in trios, they discuss the content and try and fill in with a logical, correct answer. And they write these down in their exercise book. Then they listen to the dialogue and complete it in the book. And then in groups, they compare what they've written down in their exercise books to what they've heard on the audio. And then they compare and they see, and they have to analyze and decide whether their options are equally valid and whether they have changed the meaning in the dialogue, possibly by using different grammar points. And that's where our grammar comes to life and we really see what the differences are between the recorded option and the ones that the students have come up with themselves. And here's an alternative, which could be for the students to discuss a similar scenario to the one in the listening passage, which was a study year abroad, and it was a conversation between a teacher and a student, and they can come up with their own choice. So it has to be a group choice that they negotiate, and then they write up the details of, using the listening passage as a model, using the target grammar and the structure, and then share it with the class. So grammar and vocabulary are closely intertwined within the linguistic framework, and researchers often refer to the term the word gap. That is the disparity in vocabulary and language exposure among high school students, which impacts their academic achievement and their critical thinking skills. So to address this gap in exposure to language, we really must provide our students with a language-rich experience that elevates both the quantity and the quality of vocabulary in our lessons. So here is another set of activities from the vocabulary section in Grammar in Progress. First of all, the students complete the 2 vocabulary activities and then they check their answers together. And I think if you're familiar with Grammar in Progress, you'll know that they have word lists that they complete and they compile over time while they're using the course. So after the word list on a specific area, they now have these activities that they can do to practice the vocabulary. So next, after they've done the activities, so they will have seen the word list, obviously, and then they will have done the activities. And then we move on to the debate topic in Words in Practice. Debating has gained a lot of popularity in schools globally, with private institutions like Eton in the UK, which is very famous, has invested millions of pounds, I think 20 million, on a debating chamber for their students to debate in from age 11 up to 19. So it's not surprising that 9 British prime ministers attended Eton. So they developed these debating skills. However, successful debating requires thorough preparation and tons of scaffolding to support student success. So practicing this way in informal pairs after some vocabulary activities, or even better in trios, allows students to explore different viewpoints and express their opinions in a relaxed classroom setting. An effective exercise involves setting up a discussion in trios, then swapping partners to share and debate options once again. Finally, to bring the class back together for reflection, led by the summarisers on the discussion and the overall activity. If we want to be really mean, we can ask the summarisers to comment on how much of the vocabulary they've also used in the activity. But that's me being a bit of a meanie sometimes. Okay, moving on to presentational talk. Training students to apply grammar and vocabulary structures in presentational talk transforms abstract listening concepts into tangible skills that they can see, hear, and really experience firsthand. This practical application breathes life into grammar, turning it from a static set of rules into a dynamic tool for effective communication. So when the students use the structures, they're learning to express their thoughts, argue a point, tell a story. They really begin to understand the power of language. This not only deepens their engagement with the material, but it also ignites a genuine interest in improving their grammar. And that's what really the hook that we need. As they witness the impact of their words on an audience, they realize that grammar and vocabulary are not just subjects to be studied. They're essential components of persuasive and compelling communication. And this approach makes learning more relevant, more motivating, and showing students that grammar is not really an end, but a means to express themselves clearly and confidently in the world. We can see in the graphic that grammar and vocabulary are key in the linguistic strand, and how, as said earlier, these strands interlink with each other, and public speaking and presentational talk involves all of the strands. So presentational talk, well, presentational talk and public speaking, what's the big deal? Public speaking is complex and really shouldn't be shaken off as something we just have to do when the time comes, public speaking or presentational talk. There are a wealth of skills to be learnt, and let's just have a look at just a few of them. So control fluency and pace, convey meaning, project voice and vary tone, gesture, posture, eye contact, manage time, liveliness and flair, organize content, appropriate grammar and vocabulary, display self-assurance, and finally, use rhetorical devices. Rather a long list. So it's hardly surprising that many people suffer from glossophobia. That is a fear of speaking in public. It affects you. Here are some fiction and some fact. Okay, so we're going to have a look at what people may think and then what reality really is. So it affects you just because you are, it affects just you because you are inadequate and not sociable. No, it's one of the most common phobias. Sorry, I'll just, because I've got a photograph on top of the slide, so I can't see. Okay, found it. Okay, I'm just moving around our little box of me and Valentina. Sorry there. So no, it's the most common phobias. Many fear embarrassment, judgment. It only affects people who give speeches to large audiences. Nervousness and anxiety can occur in oral tests, group work, presentations, and even job interviews, and even in social situations. And then it's not a common problem, not a serious phobia at all. 75% of people experience anxiety in public speaking. Only death and snakes are scarier for some people. And glossophobia doesn't impact my life negatively. I don't need to present at a conference. It affects everything: school, work, social relationships. Articulation and oratory are natural gifts, can't be taught or learned. Oracy can certainly be taught and learned by everyone at any age. And what can we do to encourage our students to leave the 75% that only fear death or snakes more than public speaking? And we should remember that public speaking is also coming to the front of the class and talking about something, talking about a topic, or having an oral test in front of the class. You know, public speaking in public, it just means you have an audience. You have an audience in front of you. So here we're going to look at the importance of the physical strand of the framework. So developing oracy skills, this is a new section in the book. And we have Lily, who is presenting to us. It's her first, she's in the first year of her school, so she's with her new peers. And Lily is presenting to the year group, so not only her class, the whole year group. So first of all, we're going to get the students to go to the vocabulary section. We're going to scaffold their vocabulary by getting them to revise the lists of hobbies and leisure and personal feelings, opinions, and experiences at the back of the book. Then they're going to come back, watch the video, and then answer some questions based on the target grammar structure of the unit. But what we're going to look at is the physical strand with you, because I know if I show you a video as language teachers, what usually happens is that you get into the language that's involved in the vocabulary. But I want you to look today at the physical aspect, because the great thing about the video is that we can actually see and pick up those elements. So we have things like voice, so pace of speech, tonal variation, clarity of pronunciation, and projection of voice. And then body language, so gesture and posture, facial expressions, and eye contact. And it's a 1.5 minute video, and I'd like you to watch it, and I'd like you to perhaps jot down in the chat what you think, what springs to mind regarding the physical aspects of Lily's presentation.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Lily Tang and I'm in class 1A. Today, I'm going to talk about myself. I'm a little nervous. Thank you. Well, I live in Lewes, a small town in East Sussex in the southeast of England. I was born in London, but my parents are from Hong Kong, so I'm a dual national. I'm Chinese and British. I'm interested in languages. My parents speak Chinese at home, so I am bilingual, English, Chinese. And I'm learning Italian and German. I love learning about other cultures. My hobbies are reading books and comics, and I like music, mainly pop music, but I also like a bit of trap and rap music, and I spend way too much time on social media. Thank you for listening to me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Close that. Fantastic. Okay, so I noticed in the chat I was able to do how do you say una spirciata at the chat while you were putting in your thing. So a lot of you picked up on the fact that she was smiling, that she wasn't reading, that she had some notes, that she was fidgeting, that she looked a bit nervous. All these different things that are really important for students to pick up on, because it's very natural for them when they're speaking in public at the beginning to feel all of these things. So to be able to see someone who is a bit nervous, who's making a lot of noise with her pieces of card, who's not actually reading, but she does have some notes for some support, is very encouraging. And later on, we'll see another video of Lily, and you can comment on the progress that she has made. But this is the other half of the page, so of the Oracy page. So from the questions that you would have had on the target structure on the video, we then move into a group discussion. So in the group discussion, it's groups of 3 in a trio, where they talk about their hobbies and interests, and 2 people talk in pairs, and then the third person takes notes and, silent summarizer listens and then summarizes and reports back. And then after that, we're going to work on the group presentation. So with your group of 3, prepare your presentations. Each member of the group should present themselves using the to-do checklist and the useful expressions. So they're not on their own. It's not a challenging, daunting task. They can work together on this, and then they present individually. And in these to-do checklists, they are called operational checklists, which they follow. There are 3 phases, and we have these in every unit, so at a different level. Obviously, as it's in progress, the level grows and becomes more complex, and becoming quite advanced speeches towards the end of the course. But here it's very simple. So we have the same phases all the way through: research, draft and practice, deliver. So here they're discussing personal information, then finding the words they need in the vocabulary lists, and making notes. Now, the words underlined are in the glossary. In this first unit, the words are underlined are in the checklist, because it's the first unit and these words possibly aren't high frequency for students who've only started school, recently started upper secondary school recently. And in the following units, you'll find that the glossary are in the video. So as the videos become more challenging, we offer the challenging vocabulary in the glossary. And the useful expressions are the stems that they need to be able to structure their own speech. So they have all of these ideas to get them started as pointers for them to structure their speech. So then the draft and practice phase, and this is all done in school. So we all do this together in school. So it's stress-free. They learn how to cooperate and collaborate, and really as a team, they produce their presentations. So they write the first draft of their talks. They share them with their group, their trio, for feedback, write their final draft, and then they practice giving their talk in their group. So they have as much practice as possible in their group, saying it to their group. Then the deliver phase. So if they want to, they can write their points on a card if they find it difficult to remember, because we're really working on their all of those skills that they need to be able to present and use presentational talk. So it's not fundamental at this stage for them to remember everything, and just some key pointers or a word web or some indications on some cards can be very useful. Then they give their presentation to the class and thank their classmates for listening and answer any questions. And this final phase is also very important for active listening, and we can give out some talk tokens to the members of the audience who, they have to use their talk tokens by the end. They don't know how many students are going to present, and so they have to put their hand up and try and ask some of those probing questions or even challenging questions to what they've heard. So here is an example of, I'm just going. Okay, so here is an example of this is the script of Lily's speech. So all the scripts you can find on the Zanny Kelly website, or the students can access them directly in the PDF on the Guarda app, if I'm not mistaken, and Claudia can confirm that for me in the chat, although I can't see her response. And here you will see it's very simple language because it's a first unit, so we're not expecting complex structures. And we have the key sentence stems that were present in the useful sentences in the previous page are highlighted in the script, so the students can see those embedded and use them as a model for their own work. And obviously you can't talk about nothing, so once we've done who am I, what are we going to talk about? Well, there are 7 different types of speech used in Grammar in Progress, all related to the grammar structures that they covered in the unit, and they build up. So they'll focus on the grammar structure, obviously, that's in the unit, but they'll also add in all of that, what has gone before. So they're really building up their grammar knowledge. These kind of speeches can cover everything from weather conditions or the importance of a rescue pet, consequences of teenage drinking. So some things that really will give students things to think about, and moreover, things to talk about. The life of Alan Turing, for example, motivational speeches or sharing learning journeys, even class projects and school trips. And to the very end, career choices towards the end of the book. And so now I'm just going to show you Lily's second video. She's at unit 15, so she's progressed quite a lot. She's probably had a whole year of school. She's been working on her public speaking skills, and she's been asked by her class teacher to find a film with a short motivational speech and use it to motivate the classmates. Okay, so I'd now like you to watch Lily's presentation, and again, thinking of the physical frame, so that with the voice and the body language, any comments that you can make in the chat on this video.
Today, I would like to share with you the inspiring message behind Al Pacino's speech in the film Any Given Sunday about American football and how it is relevant to our lives. In this scene, Coach Tony D'Amato, played by Al Pacino, delivers a powerful and motivational speech to his team about the importance of never giving up and how to face things in life and in football 1 inch at a time. He says that life and football is about that 1 inch, that one moment where all the margins count, and that it is about the struggle of every inch that makes the game and life worth fighting for. Just like football, the journey to success is not always a straight path, but it's the determination to achieve things that separates the good from the great. The greater the challenge, the sweeter the victory. And success becomes even more satisfying when faced with adversity. Great athletes stand out because they never stop trying to be their best, just like in life. The message of this Coach D'Amato speech is one of hope and inspiration. It reminds us that it doesn't matter what the obstacles are, it doesn't matter how difficult the journey is, we can always work for success. All we need is the courage and determination to never give up. We must push ourselves to the limit, seek excellence, and never accept mediocrity. In life, just as in any sport, we must be willing to fight for every inch, every opportunity, every advantage. We need to work together as a team and believe in each other to overcome any obstacle and achieve great things. The key to success is not just about winning, but about the journey to get there. In conclusion, I would like to leave you with this thought. Let's take life 1 inch at a time. Let's fight for every opportunity, and let's never give up on our dreams. Remember, as Coach D'Amato says in the inspirational speech, it's not about whether you get knocked down. It's about whether you get back up, stronger, faster, and better than before. Thank you.
Okay, so I was looking through the chat. Wonderful ideas. So much of I can't wait to actually read the whole lot because it's very, very fast, so I can't pick up everything. Yes, obviously she's more relaxed, she's more confident, she's using pace, she's using her body language more. So she's actually focusing more on all the physical aspects on the strand, self-assured and convincing, no notes, more confidence. Fantastic, smashed it. Somebody's, yes, I think she smashed it too. Well done. Okay. So moving on to the last slide, final slide, I've taken a quote from Lily's talk. So we need to work together as a team and believe in each other. So I just say that, working together as a team and believe in each other. Here, discussion guidelines and exploratory talk to overcome any obstacle and achieve great things. Again, together as a team. The key to success is not just about winning, about spending your talk token, but about the journey to get there. Yeah, the journey, of course, in progress, which has always been the philosophy of our book, is to work in progress and on your public speaking skills to build them up over time. So not to be worried and concerned about how anxious or nervous you might appear in your first talks, but develop that confidence over time. And that's all from me, and I'm ready to take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm sure you're reading the chat, so you are seeing how many people like the idea of watching 2 different videos and comparing the progress and see the progress, because maybe the first video you can say, okay, she's fine, but the second one is definitely an improvement. So the first question I have for you is, would you advise to work on Oracy with this kind of advice you gave us from the very beginning? I mean, first year, first semester, or would you advise to start maybe in the second semester? What's your experience about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Oracy is something that they should really start at primary school. Lots of international course books, you know, I've started including Oracy in EFL course books right from primary. Things like discussion guidelines, actually learning how to work in groups is something that's great to focus on, I think, in the first quadrimestre, is, you know, actually creating discussion guidelines with your students, because if they co-create them with the teacher, then they're more likely to buy into them than whether you know, give them out a certain set. So definitely talk tokens, something else that gets all students talking, and really show them that you value talk. You know, in your classroom, there's going to be a lot of talk over the next 5 years. We're preparing for that. So in the first term, we can start getting ready for the discussions that will come when they have more language, and perhaps some of those conversations we should be having with them in Italian. And incidentally, if I might say, the framework is actually translated into Italian. I translated it with my colleague Lisa Kester-Dodgson and Professoressa Enrica Cerconi. And I would suggest that up to level B1, that is in the biennial, that we use the framework. We can use the framework in Italian, so that just like you would do with the Common European Framework, you can use it in their own language and then gradually move into the English version when they have more language.
Okay, thank you very much. There is another question, a more detailed one from Claudia. And can you explain briefly how talk tokens works?
Yeah, the problem with me is I never explain anything briefly. But I'll try. Basically, they're just cutouts. You can print out some talk tokens, or you can have little plastic counters, and you give out a certain amount to the students, and they have to use these when they want to contribute to the group discussion. So you can give them 2, 3. You can give the reluctant speakers perhaps 3 tokens. You can give the ones that talk more 2 tokens, and say by the end of this discussion you have to use these tokens. So every time they say something, they have to spend their token, and it really pushes them into speaking or into inviting other people into the conversation. You can download, there are actually pages, PDFs online. If you Google talk tokens PDF, you'll probably find something ready that you can print out and cut up.
I have a question about the reaction of students. Imagine that we are talking with teachers that teach in high school. So maybe they are getting students in first year, which are not so accustomed to this kind of techniques. What are the reaction of students, and how can you see how they react to the progress they are making? Well, what's the emotional response, I mean?
I can with concrete examples from some schools that I worked with, particularly during the pandemic when they first came back to school, and there were some at home, some in the classroom. I think the first thing is to explain to them what the objective is. We really value talk in this classroom. We really want to up our talking skills, and we really want to focus on being able to communicate effectively. And we're going to do that in English, okay? And then explain to them. And I think you'll find that the students themselves have probably had quite a few, let's say, poor experiences of group work in the past where there hasn't been any structure to it, and where a lot of students have been left out, or they've looked at something else, or they've lost track. So when you actually find, I think the discussion guidelines is a very powerful starting point when they actually realize, and you can show them some examples, because they might have never seen good and bad talks. So if you show them some examples, you can find lots of those also on YouTube, of students, working well together and students not working so well together. They can actually understand what the norms of good talk are, get them to reflect on that, and then bring their experiences into the classroom. What do they know about group work, and how has that worked for them in the past?
Another clarification, what do you mean by sentence stem?
Well, just the start of the sentence is the beginning of the sentence. So what it does, it gives the student a way into the conversation without having to worry about the language they need, and really they're able to focus on the content. So we're giving them these opportunities to get in with the kind of thing they want to say, in the direction they want to go, and they only have to focus on the content they want to produce.
Thank you very much. So I'm sure you're reading the chat. Everybody is very happy and excited about this kind of suggestion and the kind of evening we had here, spending ideas and interesting and useful topic with you. There was a question I'd like more on the Grammar in Progress book, which I think it's interesting for you to answer. And many teachers noticed that in the example you used in the slides, in the presentation, some of the parts were in Italian. So when the student is asked to do something, some of these are written in Italian, some others are in English. Can you explain your choice as an author?
I think it depends on the kind of activity that they're expected to do. If it's an activity where the meta language is something they will know at that level, so they're at level, they're at A2 plus at the beginning of high school, A2 plus or B1, then, the language has to be suitable to that level. But we don't want to limit or dumb down the activities just because they don't have the language at that moment in time. And keeping it in English might create a barrier to some students in understanding what they have to do with the language. What the focus is what they're going to be doing with the language. And then there are other activities that they should be doing in Italian. They could be doing some critical thinking activities in Italian. They could be reflecting and thinking about the language. We wouldn't be expecting them to do that straight away at the beginning, in the first year of high school.
Okay, Sarah, I picked some adjectives from the chat describing your speech today and the experience
they're
you
good.
gave us. Yeah, they're
If they're
good.
not
They're
good,
good.
I don't want to hear them.
No. It's useful, practical, engaging, thought-provoking. I mean, I think they are very, very positive. So I really, really thank you for this super interesting webinar, as people are describing it in the chat. So thank you for being with us and being so generous with the examples and ideas.
Okay. And I hope they know that nobody else has seen the videos yet. So
yeah, no, I don't think they know. You can remark them that, yeah.
You're very lucky. It's what you call an anteprima.
Exactly.
There is also a boy, but I just wanted to show you the difference between the two, because we carefully structured the dialogues and the body language so it develops over time. So there is a boy, but it was the Festa delle Donne, so I thought I'd choose.
That's a good choice. Thank you very much, Sarah, for being with us, and thank you to all which were with us this afternoon. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. I haven't seen you, but hello.
Bye.
And goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.